start this stream is me hacking my brains out because I'm still working my, I'm just kidding, I just had a smoothie. I am still working my way through having a cold, but unfortunately, also having a smoothie for some reason always gives me this mild amount of congestion. So with that being said, I'm Andrew Douglas Moon. I often do Bible study streams on here on my channel. I'm personally identified as a Christian. And I like to do biblical studies series, but I also, for the sake of understanding different walks of life, different people, where they come from, different people's belief systems, I also read different texts and different interpretations from different belief systems as well, because otherwise, how do you really understand people? Pay people the due respect as you can to understand as they are. What's up, John Jones? Super happy to see you here, my friend. Turn up my brightness a little bit because it is a very bright, sunshiny day outside. What's up, Kia? Super happy to see you here, my friend. So yeah, as a person who identifies as a Christian and who does biblical studies the best that I can, I try to dive into other things as well for the sake of helping other people learn, helping other people grow. So while I do not have a study introduction or study translation of the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the central well-known scriptures of Hinduism, actually, I'm pretty glad my phone fell over just now because I'm going to be moving my car real fast because I didn't realize that I parked directly where the sun was going to be beaming in at us. So not a really good thing. I'm out here where my wife works right now. And so give me just a second and then we're going to get started. What? Did I literally just move? No, I didn't. Okay, I was about to say, am I moving directly into the sunlight now when I thought I was just turning away from it? But I think I just did that exact thing. I'm so sorry, you guys. No, wait a minute. Okay, this is the most chaotic introduction to a stream that I have done so far. All right, I think we're good now. Let me back up just a little, you guys. Okay, now we're definitely doing good. I did, in fact, just turn around straight to the sunlight, but so I'm a dummy. I'm going to turn around one more time, and then we're going to get started. As you guys can see, doing live streams while you're out and about is a total hoot nanny and a half, if I've ever seen one. But anyway, just to give a continuous introduction before we get fully started, in case you don't know, my name is Andrew Douglas Moon. I am a Christian, but for a very long time, other than doing just straight up biblical studies, I've also been studying other belief systems and their texts. Because again, it doesn't do a lot of good to interact with other people in different walks of life if you have no idea what they actually believe. And just like as Christians very often feel attacked or targeted, or a lot of times as Christians we feel like people are taking our belief systems and or scriptures out of context and coming at us in a negative way. Absolutely screwed. We do the same thing about people of their walks of life and beliefs as well. So whether it is Islam, taking things out of context from the Quran, but also as well thinking about what it is that people who are Hindu believe and things along the like. So between Buddhism and all across the spectrum, I'm not just going to, as a Christian, do biblical studies here on this channel. I also want to do general religious studies as a whole. So in case anybody's ever interested in that, that's what we're going to be doing. So with all that being said, if anybody has any questions, my buddies here who are moderators, if you don't mind, if people start to ask, why am I doing this? If like other fellow Christian people come through, please, by all means, feel free to answer for me if you would like to, because you know why I'm doing this. But we are going to be reading from one of the better translations that I've come across, and I've read a couple of these. Stephen Mitchell. We're going to be reading from his translation of the Bhagavad Gita, and we're going to start going through that right now. We're going to do an introduction, which is a little bit lengthy, and then we're going to actually begin reading from chapter 1. And so forth. So starting with the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita, this is one of the central texts that exists when it comes to the, actually I'll read off the back. Stephen Mitchell is widely known for his ability to make ancient masterpieces thrillingly new, to step in where many have tried before. So we're going to skip through that. The Bhagavad Gita is universally acknowledged as one of the world's literary and spiritual masterpieces. It is the core text of the Hindu tradition, which I guess could be kind of debatable, depending on your circumstances, and has been treasured by American writers such as Emerson and T.S. Eliot. There have been more than 200 English translations of the Gita, but none of them until now is a superlative literary text in its own right. So yeah, obviously we're not going to read all the marketing and stuff like that. Let's just get into the introduction by Stephen Mitchell himself. One of the best ways of entering the Bhagavad Gita is through the enthusiasm of Emerson and Thoreau. If anybody doesn't know, those are classical American writers. Our first two American sages. Emerson mentions the Gita often in his journals with the greatest respect. In quotations, it was the first of books. It was as if an empire spake to us. Nothing small or unworthy, but large, serene, consistent, the voice of an old intelligence, which in another age and climate had pondered and thus disposed of the same questions which exercise. Thoreau speaks of it in awed superlatives. The reader is nowhere raised into and sustained in a higher, purer, or rarer region of thought than in the Bhagavad Gita. Beside it, even our Shakespeare seems sometimes youthfully green and practical merely. What a revelation the Gita must have been for minds predisposed to its large-hearted vision of the world, and what a delight to stand behind Emerson and Thoreau, reading over their shoulders as they discover this stupendous and cosmological poem, in which, from the other side of the globe, across so many centuries, they can hear the voice of the absolutely genuine. Here is a kinsman and elder brother telling them truths that they already, though imperfectly, know, truths that are vital to them and to us all. In the Gita's wisdom, as in an ancient clear mirror, they find that they can recognize themselves. Souls who love God, a Sufi sheikh said 1,000 years ago, know one another by smell like horses. The one be in the east and the other in the west, they still feel joy and comfort in each other's talk. And one who lives in a later generation than the other is instructed and consoled by the words of his friend. So again, just in case anybody's curious, why am I personally a Christian reading the Gita? I'm going to be doing general religious studies and not just biblical studies here on this channel, because one thing that would be a false statement to make is that if you identify, for instance, with the Christian tradition, as I do, is that throughout all other belief systems, everybody's just got it wrong. They're completely false in every way, shape, or form. That's not the world that I believe that God created, and that also, if you ever read these texts, some of which are way older, including the one that I'm holding in our own traditions, truth without them. If you believe that God didn't put truth in the hearts of all people, even if life, temptations, and so forth corrupt things this way or that way. So with that being said, I, in the past, studied as many different belief systems as I could get my hands on, while still maintaining my Christian belief at the end of it all, due to the idea of trying to understand what truths are throughout history in different cultures and communities, and also where are things different. Maybe I disagree, maybe I agree, who knows. Real quick, let me move my phone, if I can, out of this direct sunlight. Sorry, you guys. Hopefully, you guys will be able to see me very shortly. What happened? Oh, no. Uh-oh. It would appear that I've made a no-no. Okay. Let me know if you guys can see me at this point. I don't know why my screen has gone black. Oh no, I definitely made a boo-boo, didn't I? There we go. All right. Hopefully you guys can actually see now. Everything's going to be good. Yeah, I tried to relocate my phone because unfortunately I made the silly decision of knocking it over. Anyways, so yeah, like I said, it's important to understand different backgrounds, different people, where they come from, because otherwise you're just going to pass judgments and make thoughts about people without even understanding who are they, what do they believe, and recognizing as well, spiritual truths have existed throughout all cultures throughout time. Some people sought after power, some cultures sought after understanding the creator of the universe. As we continue through this. So in one sense, this setting seems entirely the subject of Krishna's teaching, after all, a matter of the gravest urgency, the battle for authenticity, the life and death of the soul, and in all spiritual practice, the struggle against greed, against the ingrained selfishness that has covered our natural luminosity, can for a long time be ferocious as any external war. During this time, even the slightest clarity or opening of the heart is a major triumph, and metaphors of victory and defeat of conquering our enemies and overcoming fierce obstacles seem only too accurate, as if they are straightforward description. Yet from a clearer perspective, not only is there nothing to overcome, there is no one in particular to overcome it. Metaphors of struggle may just make that phantom dramas of the mind more solid, thus perpetuating the struggle, since even high spiritual warfare is one of the ego's self-aggrandizing dream. After a while, all this struggle drops away naturally. The spiritually mature human being lets all things come and go without effort, without desire for any foreseen result. Carried along on the current of a vast intelligence, as the great 20th century Hindu sage Ramana Maharshi said, the idea that there is a goal is wrong. We are the goal. We are always peace. To get rid of the idea that we are not peace is all that is required. Actually, a good case can be made of the Gita's answer about war, according to which, since the war is just, Arjuna should do his duty as a warrior, stand up like a man, and fight. It is directly contradictory to the deeper lessons that Krishna teaches. How, indeed, can an enlightened sage who cherishes all beings with equal compassion because he sees all beings within himself and himself within God, inflict harm on truth can apply to all circumstances and honorable men, during every war within memory, have come to opposite conclusions duty is. Who thought of the Gita as his eternal mother is almost convincing when he says that the deepest spiritual awareness necessarily implies absolute nonviolence. On the other hand, I can imagine even a Buddha enlisting in the war against Hitler. Nevertheless, whether or not Arjuna should fight is the most secondary question for the Gita. The primary question is, how should we live? So, next we're going to move on. Like I said, the introduction is just a little bit lengthy, but he covers quite a bit of information before it actually gets to the primary thing. So, we got a handful of pages to get through, but we're going to get there, and I appreciate you guys for stopping through here. I understand the subject's not necessarily interesting for every person, but I thought it would be fun to do this nonetheless. So, more essentially, how should I live? For the Gita is a book of deeply personal instruction. When you approach it as a sacred text, you can't help standing at first in the place where Arjuna stands, confused and eager for illumination. Whatever intellectual or aesthetic satisfaction it may provide, its purpose is to transform your life. The Gita presents some of the most important truths of human existence in a language that is clear, memorable, and charged with emotion. It is a poem, of course, and not a systematic manual. Its method is not linear, but circular and descriptive. It returns to its central point, letting go of the fruits of action again and again, addressing not only superior students, but also the great majority who are spiritually unfocused and slow to grasp the point. Let go. What does that mean? It means this. I don't get it. It means that. I still don't get it. And let me paint you a picture. But how do I let go? Just act in this way. But I can't. All right, then act in this way. But what if I can't do that either? All right, here's another approach. Thus, generously, patiently, the poem guides even the least gifted of us on a path towards freedom. One of the Gita's main or most effective methods of teaching is a portrait of the sage, the person who has entirely let go. As subtle as the portrait of the master in the Tao Te Ching, it is more easily comprehensible, though not as profound as the wild, marvelous, non-figurative image that emerges from the dialogues of the Chinese Zen masters. It is profound enough and more obviously filled with inestimable quality that we call the heart. In elaborate, loving detail, the Gita poet describes what it is like to have grown beyond the sense of a separate self, to live centered in the deathless reality at the core of our being. It is the theme he never tires of. He returns to it in almost every chapter of the poem, emphasizing now one aspect, now another, lavish with his adjectives. As you can see, I'm not very good myself with language. So hopefully, by the way, the stream is coming through well. I appreciate you guys who take the time to come through and watch. I understand if this isn't everybody's cup of tea, but thank you guys so much for taking the time to even come through here and watch when you do. So, I do not, by the way, stand behind everything that they think. Like when I read these religious history teachings, I do not stand behind everything that they teach. These are just me, again, reading to you guys from these texts. With that being said, he returns to it in almost every chapter of the poem, emphasizing now one aspect, now another, lavish with his adjectives, trying in any way he can to ignite the reader with a passionate admiration of the enlightened human being, the mature and fully realized man of yoga. The person that all of us, men and women alike, are capable of becoming, because that is who we all essentially are. Of the various paths of self-realization, karma yoga, the path of action, jnana, I actually don't know how to pronounce these properly. Jnana yoga, the path of knowledge or wisdom, Raja yoga, the path of meditation, and bhakti yoga, which is the devotion of love. the path of devotion or love. The poet clearly refers to the last, but he is aware that for people of different constitutions and affinities, different paths are appropriate. When he says that one particular path is superior, his statement doesn't come at the expense of other paths. All paths and all people are included. By the way, if anybody's watching, if you could just let me know, is the video coming through clear? Can you hear me very well? I would appreciate if you guys could let me know that, because it'd be helpful. Just making sure I don't end up keeping the stream going, but it's not working properly, because I did have some technical difficulties earlier. So if you guys can just let me know, how's everything coming through audio-wise and visually, so that way I know if I need to restart or not, because I can. Whatever their differences, the basic progression along each of these paths to no goal is similar. We begin spiritual practice by confronting with a rude shock the selfishness and obstinacy of raw mind. That is, this mind, as Arjuna says, is restless, unsteady, turbulent, wild, and stubborn. Truly, it seems to me, as hard to master as the wind. Any genuine path will, with sincere practice, result in a gradual, deepening surrender of selfishness into the ultimate reality that the Gita calls the self. Just as our primordial craving leads to all the manifold forms of our misery, letting go of our ideas about reality and our desires for particular results leads to freedom. Renunciation of the fruits of action, Gandhi wrote, is the center around which the Gita is woven. It is the central sun around which devotion, knowledge, and the rest revolve like planets. This lesson is repeated over and over throughout the Gita in seemingly endless variations, just as the essence of Judaism is love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself, as Jesus once reminded a sympathetic scribe. The essence of Hinduism is let go. The two statements are, in fact, different entrances into the same truth, which is the beginning and the end of all spiritual practice. You have a right to your actions, but never to your actions' fruits. Act for the sake of actions, or act for action's sake, and do not be attached to inaction. Self-possessed, resolute, act without any thought of results, open to the success or failure. Or to rephrase it in the language of the Tao Te Ching, do your work, then step back, the only path to serenity. The Gita's portrait of a sage may seem like an idolization. It is not. Anyone who has seen the famous photograph of Ramana Maharshi and looked into these really notices his body and its needs, no use for money or possessions, and blithely indifferent to art, society, or any type of physical love. Not to speak of life and death, such a dispassion may at first appear repulsive to some readers, but pure dispassion is a kind of compassion. Here is how he describes it. When you truly feel equal love for all beings, when your heart has expanded so much that it embraces the whole of creation, you will certainly not feel like giving up this or that. You will simply drop off from secular life as a ripe fruit drops from the branch of a tree. You will feel that the whole world is your home. There are other modes of enlightenment. Lao Tzu's model of the master who is fully involved in the world and fully present in her body seems more appropriate to our Western circumstances. But the Gita's portrait is one of classic exemplars. It's worthy of deepest respect. By the way, again, thank you guys for coming through here. Anybody who stops through to listen as I read. Again, I'm not a Hindu myself. I am identifying and I am a Christian. But I read through these things to help educate different people on the viewpoints and beliefs of different walks of life. As fine as its chapters about spiritual practice and the sage are, the Gita's finest chapters are about God. The passages in which the poet has Krishna speak of himself written at white heat, with an energy and a clarity that far surpasses similar attempts in the other sacred texts of the world. These passages are sublime, crystalline, electric, stunning in their passion, their nimbleness, their density, the hugeness of their imagination, their metaphysical grace, and their readiness to cut free from rational limits. Krishna says, for example, that he is all that is, but all that is in him, though he is not in it. But he is the best of all that is, but he is beyond is and is not. The poet is usually thought of as a great philosophical poem. It is that, of course. It is also an instruction manual for spiritual practice and a guide to peace of heart. But essentially it is, as the title implies, a love song to God. However powerful its thinking, its intention is not to be a treatise, but a psalm. Similar in concept to the Psalms and the Hebrew scriptures in our Christian Old Testament. Sorry, I lost my place. The Gita is a love song to reality, a hymn in praise of everything excellent and beautiful and brave. It is a love song to both darkness and the light, to our own true nature, or excuse me, to our own true self in the depths of being, the core from which all glories and horrors of the universe unfold. The passages in which Krishna speaks about himself are so splendid that a few short examples will suffice. First, a passage of great delicacy where the poet's love for the most fundamental elements in human life shines through his philosophical disdain for this sad and vanishing world, in quotations. Forgive me, everyone. I'm getting a random phone call from someone from New York. One would imagine it's probably a fake phone call. I am the taste and water, light in the moon and sun, the sacred syllable Om in the Vedas, the sound in air. I am the fragrance in the earth, the manliness in men, the brilliance in fire, the life in the living, and the abstinence in ascetics. I am the primal seed within all things, Arjuna, the wisdom of those who know, the splendor of the high and mighty. Next, in the wonderful 9th chapter, a passage that starts by seeing Krishna as all parts of sacrificial rite and expands until he is not only all parts of the cosmos, but even the vaster than that, the category of being. So he says, I am the ritual and the worship, the medicine and the mantra, the butter burnt in fire, and I am the flames that consume it. I am the father of the universe and its mother, essence and gold. Of all knowledge, the refiner, the sacred Om, and the threefold Vedas. I am the beginning and the end, origin and dissolution. Refuge, home, true lover, womb, and imperishable seed. I am the heat of the sun. I hold back the rain and release it. I am death. Narration turns into meditate on the guide, the giver of all, the primordial poet, smaller than an atom, unthinkable, brilliant as the sun. The long passages in which Krishna describes himself are extraordinarily moving. They keep brimming over with love and boldness. Krishna's first-person pronoun is a resplendent act of the human imagination. It is the poet himself speaking as God, so that he can speak about God. His love here is so intense and intimate that the reader must step into the words to see the very I is really you. One element of Krishna's attitude that will impress even the most casual reader is his tolerance and inclusiveness. Even those who don't know him are held in truly magnificent embrace of the following quatrain. However men try to reach me, I return their love with my love. Whatever path they may travel, it leads to me in the end. So in this teaching, it's the idea. What's up, Omar, my friend? Just by the way, anybody who comes through here, I personally am a Christian, but I have been for a very long time not just doing in-depth biblical studies. I do studies of other belief systems. I'm going to be repetitive about this as people come through, but I decided on my channel like a long time. I always like teaching people about different belief systems so that we can be respectful to them, see where they're coming from, and not really take them out of context necessarily speaking, or at least get a grip on when we talk to different people. So it's all with complete respect. So I'm reading through the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, which is one of the central texts of Hinduism, and then we're going to get started actually reading through it. So, and also I'm going to be a lot more interactive with the chat when we do these other streams, a lot less than I typically am able to be during the Bible study streams. So what's up, my friends? But anyway, at least in the first 2/3 of the poem, Krishna's large-hearted attitude toward the wicked reminds us of Jesus' love, who makes his sun rise on the wicked and on the good, and sends rain to the righteous and to the unrighteous. Even the heartless criminal, if he loves me with all his heart, will certainly grow into sainthood as he moves toward me on his path. Quickly, that man becomes pure. His heart finds eternal peace. Arjuna, no one who truly loves me will ever be lost. All those who love me and trust in me, even the lowest of the low, prostitutes, beggars, slaves, will attain the ultimate goal. The climax of the Gita is in its 11th chapter, in which Krishna appears to Arjuna in his supreme form. A terrifying theophany, a glimpse into a level of reality that is more than ordinary mind can bear. Arjuna sees the whole universe enfolded with its billions of countless life forms gathered together in the body of the God of all gods. Krishna dazzled his sight, blazing in the measureless, massive sun flame splendor of his radiant form. This is a vision of pure energy which does not discriminate between good and evil, creation and destruction. No wonder it entered modern history through the story of Robert Oppenheimer's response to the first atomic explosion at Alamogordo on July 16, 1945. What other image from the world of literature could have so uncannily right for that occasion? If 1,000 suns, in quotations, were to rise and stand in the noon sky, blazing such brilliance would be like fierce brilliance of the myself. As the bomb exploded, Oppenheimer thought of another later verse, I am death, shatterer of worlds, annihilating all things. By the way, just letting you guys know, we're almost finished with the introduction, and then we're going to dive into the real thing. I appreciate that there's even any of you guys at all who's willing to listen to this. because I know this is not for everybody. But the appropriateness of this reference, too, is uncanny. This vision of God as an elemental, undifferentiated energy is an aspect of truth, a difficult aspect for many Westerner readers to understand this concept. There is a little precedent for it in our own scriptures, which split the universe into good and evil and place God solely on the side of good. The only exceptions are the voice from the whirlwind at the end of Job. It says, a single hair raised first from the second Isaiah. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. Realizing that both the creative and destructive issue from the infinite intelligence of the universe allows to accept the whole of reality. Like the Tao doesn't take sides. It gives birth to both good and evil. The master doesn't take sides. She welcomes both saints and sinners, which is an excerpt from the Tao Te Ching. Arjuna is not yet at this stage. In fact, he is at a very beginning of his spiritual practice. The vision of the whole terrifies him. His blood chills. The hair stands up on his flesh. He has the presence of mind to sing an ecstatic paean to God's infinite darkness and light embracing power. But then the dread overwhelms him. He begs for the vision to be taken away, and Krishna resumes his kind and beautiful form. The 11th chapter of the Gita is one of the great moments in world literature. The only fitting sequel to it in the rest of the poem would be pure silence. The most profound sacred texts have a way of self-destructing. They undermine their own authority, gleefully hoist themselves with their own petard. Because they don't confuse what they are with what they are about, they encourage us to see them as, in the end, disposable. So in quotations, passages from the Gita say, as unnecessary as a well is to a village on the banks of a river, so unnecessary are all scriptures to someone who has seen the truth. When your understanding is passed beyond the thicket of delusions, there is nothing you need to learn from even the most sacred scripture. Indifferent to scriptures, your mind stands by itself, unmoving, absorbed into deep meditation. This is the essence of yoga. So, this particular idea, we need to take these sacred texts with ultimate seriousness, but the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. If we take them too seriously, they become obstacles rather than a means of liberation. The healthiest way to begin reading and absorbing the text of the Bhagavad Gita is to understand that ultimately it has nothing to teach. Everything essential that it points to, what we call wisdom or radiance or peace, is already present inside us. Once we've practiced meditation sincerely and seen layer after layer of inauthentic fall away, we come to a place where duality, such as the sacred and profane, spiritual and unspiritual, fall away as well. Zen master Sui Feng asked a monk where he had come from. The monk said, from the monastery of spiritual light. The master said, in the daytime we have sunlight, in the evening we have lamplight. What is spiritual light? The monk couldn't answer. The master said, sunlight, lamplight. In that place, God is the ground we walk on, the food we eat, and the gratitude we express to no one in particular as naturally as breathing. So, the ideas that we're going to learn here, for me personally, obviously there's things that as a Christian, there's obviously things that I severely differ on when it comes to a spiritual stance of reading things like the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, and other texts from different belief systems. And yet, there is also wonderful things that have helped me even reflect more on my own belief and my own faith, because it, just as we just read through, the Gita ends up teaching that the idea of, like, to those who are in deep prayer or meditation, that you ultimately end up you don't really need scriptures anymore of any belief system. They believe that it's just through prayer. We kind of have to understand that even though I would argue against that, I would say that it is very much a important thing to spend time reading scriptures. On the flip side, you would think that as a Christian, that anybody around the world, especially people who have never heard of or even have any concepts of like the belief systems that we have, and there are still plenty of places, not only throughout time, but to this day out there, who are in that situation. You are very disconnected from like modernized society. You have to understand that if there is any success at all to be think of spiritually, it comes from meditation and prayer for those people to connect to whatever way they can to who God is, in that way that they can do so. So just throwing that out there is, again, as a Christian, we have to respect and understand different walks of life and beliefs, because so very often we like to accuse people, and I say this a lot, we accuse people of taking our own scriptures out of context and attacking us unfairly. And then we use things like apologetics to defend our beliefs. Whereas on the flip side, we come at different walks of life and different belief systems very frequently without really trying to understand what do they actually believe, how do they live out their life. And in many cases, similar to how us as Christians, our own scriptures present things like slavery, which we very much understood throughout time, and reflection on the scriptures is like, oh no, like we shouldn't keep doing this, and worked our way away from those things. we have to understand that different cultures went through those same development processes as well. So, with that being said, again, I'm going to start reading the Gita now at chapter 1. Just remember that there's going to be a lot of things that I personally do not believe or agree with naturally as we go through this, but we're reading it for understanding and education's sake. If you guys could, please continue to let me know, hopefully that my audio is coming through very good. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so very much. So as we enter into the Gita, we're going to be going through, this is a long poetic text, and the very beginning part of this is a understanding about what was going on with the battle that we're going to see, because it starts off with a battle, and then Arjuna, who becomes the main character of this, is someone who is presented within the battle. So thank you, Kia, for letting me know that the audio is coming through good. I appreciate you. So let's get started. So I was going to title this "A Christian Reads the Bhagavad Gita," but I was like, you know what, that's too what do you call it, clickbaity. I don't want to do that. So let's get started. Arjuna's Despair, chapter 1. I'm not going to pronounce these names properly either, so please forgive me. King Dhritarashtra said, "In the field of righteousness, the field of Kuru, tell me, Sire, what happened when my army and the Pandavas faced each other, eager for battle?" The poet Sanjaya said, "Seeing the ranks of the Pandavas' forces, Prince Duryodhana approached his teacher Drona and spoke these words: 'Look at this great army, led by my son Drupada, your worthy pupil. Many great warriors stand ready to do battle. Many great archers, men as formidable as Bhima and Arjuna.'" Then it says a handful of names. I honestly don't want to be disrespectful, and it just discusses them and their mannerisms. And it talks about a certain people. So it says, "Famous for his courage, the son of Subhadra and the sons of Draupadi, all of them great warriors." So just like I said, it listed a handful of names of people who are part of the family and stuff, and I can't say their names properly, and I don't want to be disrespectful. "Now, most honored of priests, look at the great men on our side, the leaders of my army. You first, then Bhishma, Karna, the always victorious Kripa, a handful of son, this person. Kind of like when we go through, it talks about many heroes, all of them skilled in war and arms, many stake. Limitless is this army of ours, but the army led by Bhima is limited. Wherever the battle moves, all of you must stand firm and make sure that Bhishma is protected." Then Bhishma, the aged grandfather of the Kurus, roared his lion's roar and blew a powerful blast on his conch horn, and Duryodhana's heart leapt with joy. Immediately, all the conches blared, and the kettle drums, cymbals, trumpets, and drums, a deafening clamor. Standing in their great chariot yoked with white horses, Krishna and Arjuna, who is going to be the main people who we're going to hear from throughout this, Krishna and Arjuna blew their celestial conches. Krishna blew the conch called One from the Demon, Panchajana. Arjuna blew God-given, ferocious. Wolf-bellied Bhima blew the mighty conch called King Pandra. Prince, I swear to you, as we go through this, we're about to get past. I'm just going to skip all that part right there. O King blew their conches all at once. The uproar tore through the hearts of his men and echoed throughout heaven and earth. So what you see here is, again, this battle set up where there's people on opposing sides. There's a battle that's about to happen. And now they're all blowing their conch shells like signaling we're about to go fight now. This is about to get started. So then Arjuna, looking at the battle ranks of the enemy's men, raised his bow as the weapons were about to clash and said to Krishna, "Drive my chariot and stop between the two armies so that I can see these warriors whom I am about to fight. Drawn up and eager for battle, I want to look at the men gathered here ready to do battle service for his evil-minded son." After Arjuna spoken, Krishna drove the splendid chariot and brought it to a halt midway between the two armies, facing Bhishma, Drona, and the other great kings. And he said, "Look, Arjuna, from here you can see all the Kurus who are gathered to do battle, each side arrayed against the other." In despair, overwhelmed with pity, he said, "As I see my own kinsmen gathered here, eager to fight, my legs weaken, my mouth dries, my body trembles, my hair stands on end, my skin burns, the bow Gandiva drops from my hand. I am beside myself, my mind reels. I see evil omens, Krishna. No good can come from killing my own kinsmen in battle. I have no desire for victory or for pleasures of kingship. What good is kingship or happiness or life itself when those for whose sake we desire them, teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, uncles, father-in-laws, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other kinsmen, stand here in battle ranks, ready to give up their fortunes and their lives? Though they want to kill me, I have no desire to kill them, even not for the kingship of 3 worlds, let alone for that of this earth. What joy would we have in killing his men? Evil will cling to us if we kill them, even though they are the aggressors. And it would be unworthy of us to kill our own kinsmen. How could we be happy if we did? Because their minds are overpowered by greed, they see no harm in destroying the family, no crime in treachery to friends. So again, that's a very powerful statement right there about, no way. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kia, for sending me $1.49. I appreciate you so much. I guess I probably shouldn't have said how much. It doesn't really matter. Either way, I appreciate you. Thank you, buddy. So what you see here again, before we even finish chapter 1, is Krishna is facing a battle between his kinsmen because there is evil that has been done. There is a lot going on here, and he is feeling this. So throughout this poem, what we are seeing here is this report is being sent back to the man, name properly, Dhritarashtra. He is getting this information back, that, okay, Krishna was Arjuna was very much like in severe pain about the idea, like, I don't care if I get power, I don't care about kingship, it would be better for me than to just die here instead of fighting, than to kill all of my family members and gain the kingship of 3 worlds if that was possible. So, because their minds are overpowered by greed, they see no harm in destroying the family, no crime in treachery to friends. But we should know better, Krishna. Clearly seeing the harm caused by the destruction of the family, we should turn back from this evil. When the family is destroyed, the ancient laws of family duty cease. When law ceases, lawlessness overwhelms the family. When lawlessness overwhelms the women of the family, they become corrupted. When women are corrupted, the intermixture of castes is the inevitable result. The intermixture of castes drag down to hell both those who destroy the family and the family itself. The spirits of the ancestors fall, deprived by offerings of rice and water. Such are the evils caused by those who destroy the family because of the intermixture of castes. Caste duties are obliterated and the permanent duties of the family as well. We have often heard, Krishna, that men whose family duties have been obliterated must live in hell forever. Alas, we are about to commit a great evil by killing our own kinsmen. Because of our greed for the pleasures of kingship, it'd be better if his men killed me in battle, unarmed and unresisting. Having spoken these words, Arjuna sank down into the chariot and dropped his arrows and bow. His mind was heavy with grief. So again, I appreciate you guys stopping through here as I do this. Again, I don't necessarily, I'm not myself a Hindu, I'm a Christian, but I love reading the different texts of different beliefs to understand them. And it's cool to share this with you guys to see, what do these stories teach? Also understand the Bhagavad Gita is actually a nugget of information that comes from a much bigger and grander poem, or a much bigger and grander piece of work. So it is not just in and of itself this one singular thing, a standalone. This comes from a much larger text. So with that being said, I'm going to continue in chapter 2, the practice of yoga. So we just heard Arjuna talking about how it's impossible. Like, I'm not going to kill my family members. I'm not going to engage in this fight. Now let's see what happens next. As Arjuna sat there, overwhelmed with pity, desperate tears streaming from his eyes, Krishna spoke these words to him. Why this timidity, Arjuna, at a time of crisis? It is unworthy of a noble mind. It is shameful and does not lead to heaven. This cowardice is beneath you. Arjuna, do not give in to it. Shake off your weakness. Stand up like the man now. Arjuna said, when the battle begins, how can I shoot arrows through Bhishma and Drona who deserve my reverence? It would be better to spend the rest of my life as a pauper, begging for food, than to kill these honored teachers. If I killed them, all my earthly pleasures would be smeared with blood, and we do not know which is worse, winning this battle or losing it. Since if we will kill his man, we will not wish to remain alive. I am weighed down by pity, Krishna. My mind is utterly confused. Tell me where my duty lies. Which path should I take? I am your pupil. I beg for your instruction, for I cannot imagine how any victory, even if I were to gain the kingship of the whole earth or of all the gods in heaven, could drive away this grief that is withering my senses. Having spoken thus to Krishna, Arjuna said, I will not fight, and he fell silent. As Arjuna sat there, downcast between the two armies, Krishna smiled at him and then spoke these words. So, the blessed Lord said, although you mean well, Arjuna, your sorrow is sheer delusion. Wise men do not grieve for the dead or for the living. Never was there a time when I did not exist, or you, or these kings, nor will there come a time when we cease to be. Just as in this body, the self passes through childhood, through youth, and then old age, so after death, it passes to another body. Physical sensations, cold and heat, pleasure and pain, are transient. They come and go. So bear them patiently, Arjuna. Only the man who is unmoved by any sensations, the wise man indifferent to pleasure, to pain, is fit for becoming deathless. Non-being can never be. Being can never not be. Both these statements are obvious to those who have seen the truth. The presence that pervades the universe is imperishable, unchanging, beyond both is and is not. How could it ever vanish? These bodies come to an end, but that vast embodied self is ageless, fathomless, eternal. Therefore you must fight, Arjuna. If you think that this self can kill or think that it can be killed, you do not well understand reality's subtle ways. It never was born, coming to be. It will never not be. Birthless, primordial, it does not die when the body dies. Knowing that it is eternal, unborn, beyond destruction, how could you ever kill, and whom could you kill, Arjuna? Just as you throw out used clothes and put on other clothes, new ones, the self discards its used bodies and puts on others that are new. The sharpest sword will not pierce it, the hottest flame will not singe it, water will not make it moist, wind will not cause it to wither. It cannot be pierced or singed, moistened or withered. It is vast and perfect, all-pervading, calm and immovable, timeless. It is called the inconceivable, the unmanifest, the unchanging. If you understand it in this way, you have no reason for your sorrow. So, just a quick understanding real quick. In Hinduism, there is a simple concept. We're going to learn a bunch of other concepts when we study this belief system, this religion, this philosophy. But in Hinduism, there's obviously the concept of reincarnation. A lot of people probably know this. Other belief systems believe it as well. But in Hinduism specifically, there's definitely this concept of reincarnation. Also the idea that within every physically existing body is the spirit, the self that has always been, all connected to the being, the ultimate source, Brahma or Brahman, the creator of everything. So technically speaking, Hinduism sort of like is in its way believing in one God, one creator, one existing emanating force. And then from there are many manifestations of God. So they would see Jesus, for instance, as like a manifestation of God in the flesh, as that there have been many other throughout history is the way that a Hindu person would take it and then believe it. So, but in and of itself, inside of all of us is a soul or a spirit that has always existed because it connects to what has always existed. In that way, and that everything in one way or shape or form is God because it's all connected to God. That is the Hindu concept. But again, there's much more to it than that. So again, so it's called the inconceivable, the unmanifest, the unchanging. If you understand it this way, you have no reason for your sorrow. Even if you think that the self is perpetually born and perpetually dies, even then, Arjuna, you have no reason for your sorrow. Death is certain for the born, for the dead. Rebirth is certain. Since both cannot be avoided, you have no reason for your sorrow. So, before birth begins are manifest. Before birth, beings are unmanifest. Between birth and death, manifest at death, unmanifest again. What cause for grief in all this? Some perceive it directly in all its awesomeness. Others speak of it with wonder. Others hear of it and never know it. This self who dwells in the body is inviolable forever. Therefore, you have no cause to grieve for any being, Arjuna. Know what your destiny is and do it without hesitation. For a warrior, there is nothing better than a battle that the duty enjoins. Blessed are warriors who are given the chance of battle like this, which calls them to do what is right in the gates of heaven. Hey, buddy. Super glad to see you too, Marco. I appreciate you being here. As you can see, I keep repeating this, but I just want people to understand if you come through. When I am studying and teaching you guys about belief systems, I am not saying that I myself subscribe to them, that I endorse them, although there are definitely good things and spiritual truths that come from every belief system and walk of life. Just want to make that very clear at the onset, that we are learning these things for the sake of appreciating and respecting different cultures. So just throwing that out there. But anyway, I guess I don't have to keep explaining myself all the time, but I appreciate you guys for coming through here. I'm so sorry. So, but if you refuse the call to a righteous war and shrink from what duty and honor dictate, you will bring down ruin on your head. Decent men for all time will talk about your disgrace, and disgrace for a man of honor is a fate far worse than death. These great heroes will think that fear has driven you from this battle. All those who once esteemed you will think of you with contempt. Your enemies will sneer and mock you. The mighty Arjuna, that brave man, he slunk from the field like a dog. What deeper shame could there be? If you are killed, you gain heaven, triumph, and you gain the earth. Therefore, stand up, Arjuna, steady your mind to fight. Indifferent to gain or loss, to victory or defeat, prepare yourself for the battle and do not succumb to sin. This is philosophy's wisdom. Now hear the wisdom of yoga. Armed with this understanding, you will shatter your karmic bonds. On this path, no effort is wasted, no gain is ever reversed. Even a little of this practice will shelter you from great sorrow. I'm so sorry. Resolute understanding is single-pointed, Arjuna, but the thoughts of the irresolute are many-branched and endless. Foolish men talk of religion in cheap, sentimental words, leaning on the scriptures, saying God speaks here and speaks here alone. Driven by desire for pleasure and power, caught up in ritual, they strive to gain heaven, but rebirth is the only result of that striving. They are lured by their own desires, besotted by the scripture's words. Their minds have not been made clear by the practice of meditation or prayer. The scriptures dwell in duality. Be beyond all opposites, Arjuna. Anchored in the real and free from all thoughts of wealth and comfort. As unnecessary as a well is to a village on the banks of a river, so unnecessary are all scriptures to someone who's seen the truth. You have a right to your actions, but never to your actions' fruits. Act for the sake of action's sake, and do not be attached to inaction. Self-possessed, resolute, act without any thought of results, open to success or failure. This equanimity is yoga. Action is far inferior to the yoga of insight, Arjuna. Pitiful are those who act, or pitiful are those who, acting, are attached to their actions' fruits. The wise man lets go of all results, whether good or bad, and is focused on the action alone. Yoga is skill in actions. The wise man whose insight is firm, relinquishing... No! Wow, my wife brought me hot dogs.
Yeah.
Yay! Thank you so much.
Are you streaming?
I am streaming.
Hi, people.
So, oh no. I just realized I got a big mess that I have to clean up.
Yeah, you were.
Well, no, I didn't think you were going to be getting off so soon. But that's
Slow season.
it's the slow season. So yeah, she brought me. I appreciate her. So,
Yeah,
let's see.
Wow, I love to be alone with my flamingo shirt.
With your flamingo shirt. Well, I appreciate you so much for taking the time to bring me to the... Look, she just got off work and she brought me 2 hot dogs. That's what I'm talking about. I love you. You're so pretty. Did you have a good day? Well, I guess in this case, I'm just going to have to end it here and we're going to have to come back next time because probably, I don't know. Hold this.
Yeah.
No, hold the hot dog.
No one wants to see you eat Wheaties online.
I'm not going to eat the hot dogs while I'm streaming. But I don't want to just leave it. Oh, you know what? I guess will just continue from there. But ultimately, we read through quite a bit of a chunk to get started, and I will see you guys next time. Dang.